Welcome to this new podcast from Implement AI. I'm Piers, Linney, one of your hosts, and my co-founder of Implement AI is Aalok, Shukla. And this is it's a new podcast we've started today. We've started Implement AI reasonably recently, and we thought, everyone's asking us for updates and news. This world's moving very, very quickly. So we thought we'd start a podcast focused on this for you. So we can give you updates, insights, share some experiences, and tell you what we're doing and how the company's progressing. If you don't know much about us, I'll give you a quick intro. So I'm Piers Linney. My background is in technology, some media, communications. I'm probably best known for being a dragon on Dragon's Den on TV in the UK. That's Shark Tank if you're abroad. But I've been I've been in technology and cloud and communications, unified communications, and more recently, artificial intelligence for probably 15 or 20 years now. I've sat on the board of Tech UK. I was a founding board member of the UK Cloud Industry Forum. This is what I do. I'll let Aalok introduce himself.
My name's Aalok. Glad to be here, Piers. I've been in tech for the last 7 years, mainly focused on technology within health, but we've been working with artificial intelligence since 2019, and in the older style of neural networks, computer vision, also robotics and robotic process manufacturing. So yeah, good to connect with you.
So we kind of got together. We were talking about this for a while. People were talking to us, and we thought, let's put our heads together on our capabilities, and we started implementing AI. So it's been, like I said, it's an absolute whirlwind, isn't it? We'll get into a bit more detail. We've been talking to various boards of small companies and large companies, and what we're trying to do is kind of almost productize consultancy to make it easy to absorb. Because the problem is, as soon as you think about something, or you develop something, or you implement something, the world's moved on. I mean, we do this like every day, and it's bad enough and hard enough for us to keep up. So for our clients and companies we're talking to keep up is kind of nigh impossible.
And I think one of the key points is when we were giving an update to a large professional services firm, and it was like the whole boardroom, it was nobody's job to be thinking about this. AI sits across everybody's department as transforming everything. So for some people, it's almost snuck up on them about what's possible. So it's really quite exciting to be able to really help companies understand the power that's there, whether you're, 500-person organization or a 10-person organization, you all can benefit in a massive way.
And I think you're absolutely right. So what was fascinating is that, even a CTO, it's not really their job at all. Even a CIO, potentially it's going to become their job, but it isn't. So we've been developing the idea of an AI officer, supplied by a fractional AI officer, supplied by Implement AI to support companies. But I think what we've just set the scene, what we've been doing though, initially, is kind of in an organization, everyone's at different levels. So you've got the sort of C-suite, sometimes they're disconnected from the technology team, they've been looking at this. You've got people using AI in their day job. So I used to talk about, shadow IT. People using IT systems that weren't really signed off. Now people are using shadow AI, which is, orders of magnitude more powerful. So we've been sort of saying, right, let's just explain the way where the world is, the state of the nation, the state of the technology, and bring everyone up to at least a kind of a baseline level. So we've had a way we sort of present this basically is we've had this kind of human first world, haven't we, where machines or technology has been augmenting humans to make them cleverer, make them be able to do more things, to be able to utilize and access more data more easily, or just to be stronger and faster. We've now moved into, and this is past tense, this is since the beginning of this year really, although there were rumblings at the end of last year, but especially with these, these chatbot front ends, these large language models, we've now moved into an AI-assisted era. And there's no going back. I was talking to my children who are sort of kicked out while we're doing the podcast. It's half term, saying, look, you're going to grow up in a world where you will never, ever not have access to this technology. So it's a fundamental shift. So there's a time now, this AI-assisted era, and it's going to be, if you're a knowledge worker, we're working with a law firm last week, accountancy firm we've been working with. It's changing what they do and how they recruit and their whole business model fundamentally forever. So I was a trustee of Nesta for 6 years, UK's largest innovation agency, got £600 million foundation, did a lot of research on artificial intelligence. This was probably going back 4 years now. And the research came out and said that the creative jobs are the safest ones. And the way it's turned out is that the creative jobs are becoming the first ones to go. So you're looking at ways of creating imageries and photography on the fly, essentially. So this AI-assisted world in terms of knowledge and software is going to move very quickly. It's a 2 to 5 year maximum window. Robotics and physical labor is going to be a bit longer, but eventually artificial intelligence will start to develop robotics in ways that even we don't understand. And that's going to be very, very quickly. And then whenever that is, be it in sort of knowledge work and software or physical work and technology and robots, that could be 50 years out. But then we're into an AI first world, and there'll be generations of people that, they don't trust a human to drive their car. They want an autonomous car. They don't want a human lawyer or an accountant because they're not as good as the automated versions. And that's the world we're
Absolutely.
moving
So,
into.
like for example, in the States now, they were surveying medical students that were going to go into different specialties, and already the numbers that were going to choose radiology, so reading X-rays, reading scans, the percentage that are choosing radiology is decreased because you've got systems which do the full scan and the AI diagnostics in the loop. There's no human at all. So the thing is, like, when you've got the power of a system that can crunch how much data, like one of these new language models called Claude, it can basically load in 100,000 tokens, which is nearly like 100,000 words, right? And you can interrogate it on any part of it. Give me all the instances of this word or that word. A human just couldn't do that. So we're now entering this area where you said AI assisted is absolutely the way to go. And I think a lot of people have been looking at GPT and different things like this, but there's multiple dimensions to AI. You've got like the AI interfaces where it's like voice, text, or even like interfacing in that way. But then you've also got AI, agents and robotic process automation. And when you start mashing everything together, it's really quite exciting what can be done, isn't it, Piers? Like, so
What's happened is that all these different strands of research, these sort of themes essentially, have all now coalesced because these large language models, whether it's an image, whether it's text, speech, video, doesn't matter anymore. It's communication, isn't it? So now you can communicate. It's become very, very quickly, Google, Gemini, it's multimodal. So it's text to speech, it can be speech to video even. And that's brought all these research strands together and they've all coalesced. So now you've got almost like an exponential change beginning to happen because all those brains and minds and times and now money is focused
Absolutely.
on it.
And I think one of the interesting things that we've been looking at is like how companies can be proactive about it, because you really got to control this from the top down, because you don't want like to leak productivity by one department suddenly using AI and then now they can get a part-time job because they don't need to do as much. It's all about having that vision about where you're going to implement things. And that's why we've been doing boardroom updates, isn't it? So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because we had there's two bits we can cover. One was like boardroom updates we've been doing for bigger companies. And also we did a really interesting AI for business boardroom update for small and medium-sized business owners last week as well, isn't it?
Yes, I think the boardroom updates have been really, partly training, I would call it, isn't it? As I said before, bringing everyone up to a level. But, talking about things, about innovation curves and the way this world is changing. But I think that the kind of scene setter, the way I've used it, is, if you're familiar with innovation curves, where, a technology takes a long time to sort of kick in, then you've got a new technology begins to arrive. Cloud technology is a great example of it. AC, DC power back in the day was another good example. And there's a period of time of what they call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, where the old technology and the new technology are sort of fighting each other. And, they're sort of telling each other the other one's still better. But over time, as we all know, the new technology usually, most often, it takes over, and then it takes longer than you think to take off. But when it takes off, it takes up a lot faster. Now, I spent, 10 years, sometimes not successful as I wanted to be, selling cloud. And cloud was kind of like, well, why should I move? Because I'm doing the same thing on premise as I can do in the cloud. Yeah, there's more scale, more security, might be a bit cheaper, but do I really need to move? No, you didn't. AI is completely different. This innovation curve, and we're big positive. We're believers in the positive implement AI. So we think that there's going to be real change for good. But this innovation curve potentially is the last one driven by humans, and we won't have these sort of long periods of time where it takes generations and research and people doing degrees and becoming PhDs to move on. Software will be able to iterate and develop and improve overnight. In minutes, seconds, infinitely, and all the time. So you have these big curves. It'll be constant, and that's why you see exponential change. And we as humans, this is the thing we were saying. We as humans, we only think in a linear fashion, and it's very hard to understand exponential change or geometric progression. Someone's got a cough in Wuhan. Suddenly, your kids can't go to school, and that's the world we're going into. So trying to see too far out is very difficult. And also right now, like, as we've talked to other people, and especially the smaller companies as well, there's a huge amount of noise that we're trying to cut through.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I think like the key thing here is like it's not even just an exponential; it's a stacked exponential. So I was showing a graph at that presentation last week about the adoption curve for Stable Diffusion, which is a different language model which is used to generate images. And if you look at it on a graph, it actually looks straight up. And people thought that that was like the axis going up, but it wasn't. That was the adoption curve of that, and that's much faster than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and we know how much people loved all those things, isn't it? Right. So I think the key thing here is like you have to have a plan, and you have to understand that like if you're dealing in information, bytes, voice, text, whatever it is like this, all of that is going to get, co-piloted, assisted, or dealt with directly with the AI. And you have to have a plan of where your team is going to go, because we've seen these companies like IBM. They announced that 8,000 employees were going to be, like not hired or potentially let go. I mean, you've got to have.
BT, 55,000 in the UK, which was it, a fifth? They expect to be the result of AI.
Where everyone's going to, how everyone's going to be, reorganized and redeployed, because you need to have a vision for that. So last week, so let's talk about last week. So we were at St Masons in London, and we ran an AI for Business boardroom update for different small business owners from across the UK and Ireland. And it was a really great day, really, really insightful.
Well, I'm actually a lawyer by training, another string to my bow, and it's quite interesting that, a law firm now, I think St Masons, it was their innovative delivery partner, gave a very interesting talk. But even their strapline's kind of like, we're a professional services firm with law at the core. And even then we were talking, and we were having a private chat as well about, being a trainee solicitor now, what's the outlook? It's potentially even worse in accounting because, these models are pretty good at adding up increasingly, especially they can access, computational power as well. So that world's changing massively, and I think it was interesting that some of the people there had turned up because they clearly wanted to. Some had turned up because they've been told to attend by their boss. But I think there's two of them, wasn't there? We were kind of like, okay, well, hopefully, they were like, well, we'll enjoy the lunch, and we kind of thought, well, hopefully, we'll add some value. By the end of it, the way we were talking to them, we went for a quick drink afterwards in Liverpool Street in London. We changed their lives. We changed their outlook on their career. We changed their business. And the point I keep making is that, there's still time yet. You talk about a bullet train leaving the station. I talk about a ship leaving a harbour. And you can still make that leap from the quayside onto that boat. But that gap's becoming wider as these things move away. And AI, in the very short term, it's not going to replace you or your business. What will is your competition using AI. Because and we work through the examples in that session, we can talk about the change in terms of your growth potential, and let's call it, it can be cost reduction, but it can be optimizing your cost as you grow. It makes a huge difference in terms of not just your margins, but when you're applying 10x to the cash flow of these businesses in terms of valuation, you're looking at 10 times multiple on that. In additional, with one example, the £1 million of revenue, we could extract 200k. So you're adding 2 million to the value of that business, which is owned by one person, and that's huge wealth creation.
And I think the key thing there is like looking at like how there are different elements that you can kind of benefit from. So one of the exciting things is like people finding an unfair advantage, because now with your kind of like digital customer experience and with the AI tools, you can create an experience which no one else can match. So as an example, like I was literally just before I was talking with you, Piers, I was talking with a financial services company that deal with like loans and finance products basically, and they were explaining that like there's not much differentiation in those products, and it comes down to service. But then we were talking that if there was like an AI agent version, then any accountant could basically recommend that firm's products because it would already know the eligibility criteria and all the different details from it. And I said, if you've got like a more frictionless user experience for your resellers, your adoption is going to go off the charts basically, right? So the whole point here is like, you've got the advantage to be able to like literally deploy a superior digital experience, and then while everybody else is trying to figure out what's going on, you can just like accelerate ahead basically.
And that's the key, is you've got to move very, very quickly. And I always use an example, I call it the value pyramid, call it what you like, but essentially the pyramid was, it was human labour and knowledge, and the technology over the years is moving up, and it's kind of squeezing us into the top where you've got to add more value. I mean, selling the average product to the average price, the average person, the average way, your lunch is going to be eaten for sure. So you've got to move up this pyramid into the top where you add more value, and you use technology to automate the mundane, automate anything you can also automate. And increasingly, our world will change because Will there be enough work in there for all of us? But between now and then, that's a huge opportunity. And you've got to move up to the top of that pyramid very, very quickly, because if you don't, you're left behind. The issue with exponential change, and this is why nation states are fascinated by it, not fascinated, determined to solve, artificial general intelligence. Because if you solve it on Monday and someone else solves it on Wednesday, say, they'll never catch up. And that's the same in business. You're not going to be able to, in 3 years, when the kind of world's moved on, a bit like cloud, or shall I now build a website? It's not going to be like that. It's going to be very, very difficult to catch that train or make the leap from the quayside onto that boat. And a lot of businesses, the ones in the room, during that day, and it was a whole day, wasn't it? During that day, you can see that realization.
No, absolutely. So why don't we talk about a couple of practical examples? Because we've been talking a little bit abstract. So let's look at an example. So imagine you've got a marketing department, and imagine you were targeting one type of customer, or let's say you've got different customer groups, but you've got one marketing department. Typically, you can only generate a certain number of social media videos a week. You can only generate a certain number of blog posts a week. But now with AI, you could literally create different brands, sub-brands or persona brands for targeting, doctors, dentists, lawyers, charities, whatever it is basically. And so your same team can be more productive. So that's moving up that value pyramid that we talked about. Or it's even having your own bespoke tools. So I was showing that guy in the financial services this tool where basically it's from a medical application, but it can be repurposed into anything. It's where let's say the doctor or the advisor is talking with the client, and the whole transcription is happening at the bottom, but then it's also prompting and suggesting questions for the expert or the doctor to ask the patient or the customer. It's guiding them basically, right? And then on the left-hand side,
I saw that, and then
suggesting diagnostics.
It was changing his view on the diagnosis, wasn't it, over time?
So imagine you're a mortgage broker, you have a conversation with someone about the different elements, and it could list to you, okay, what questions to ask, and other areas of financial opportunity or things that they need to look at. Same could be for AI-assisted audit, AI-assisted medical consultation, AI-assisted, financial services consultation, you name it. It's there, and then you can have a button on the right where you can generate a transcript or a summary or a data visualization of the meeting. Imagine literally we have a conversation and you send me afterwards a knowledge graph, like I was showing some of these 3D knowledge graphs, which explains what's important to the person, what the themes are. I mean, you can just wow people basically, and then you're going to be trusting that person more, who appears more data-driven and faster, or someone that is going to be taking a week before a dictated letter comes to you in the post. I mean, who are you going to choose?
And these are examples we've used on several occasions where just to show the art of the possible. And I think that a lot of the businesses in the room, and these were kind of ranging from two people even, probably 5, up to sort of about 100. They could all see immediately. And you hear a lot of the obvious, but even a lot of the obvious can make a massive difference. And you might read about the obvious on the news or watch a YouTube video, but actually implementing that and having the right framework, policies, government structure to implement it and keep it up to date within your organizational, ICT framework isn't that straightforward, because this is moving so quickly. Like we were saying, that I remember probably 3 weeks ago now, I can be techie if I need to be. So I had my command line, I had 2 auto GPTs. These are like 2 agents chatting to each other, doing some research while I was making a cup of tea in the last room. I think I put a post about it on LinkedIn. And then they started to try and send a tweet, which when I kind of went running back and stopped them. So one week I'm on a command line trying to get this thing to work, and it was a bit clunky, a bit overhyped, but again, it was showing the art of the possible. And then 2 weeks later, OpenAI, ChatGPT, has launched plugins, which are essentially the same thing. They are different agents that go off and they perform tasks, bring back the information, the knowledge, or a result, whatever it was, and then they combine it to achieve an outcome that you've actually asked for. So that fundamental, and these are now accessing the internet, Wolfram Alpha, which is a big computational model, lots of data. I was doing an example of, if the temperature is 20 degrees in Lisbon, where you are, book me a flight. And it checks the weather, it was Wolfram, comes back, logs into Expedia, and books a flight. Now, what's interesting is, this is, and we talked about this, potentially the end of a website. I mean, what is a website? It's some HTML, it's some back-end potentially, it's something on the web you go and look at to try and access information. If all you have now is a data repository of all the information about your products and services and pricing, that's all it is. There's an API plugged into a large language model, and in your chatbot, look, I'm trying to find a present for my wife. I've got this much to spend, ideally jewelry. I want to pick it up. I want to customize it. It's in London. You don't have to go find 16 different websites and do the research yourself. It'll just give you the results, and then you can purchase it. That will, send off. It'll use an API to make that order for you, customize it, and get it delivered. So the world of SEO, websites,
It's changing.
I think
It's just like
it is going to change
and it's just
massively
going to be
in the
like
next
those
3
that
years.
like have the fastest friction-free experience, either for a human or an AI agent, are going to benefit. So you really need to be thinking about this now. So what's been happening, Piers? Like when companies want to find out more, what's the next step? What's the best way to do that?
So we've been developing. So we're trying to productize, aren't we? So I think that event was very interesting in terms of understanding what people want. So the way we look at it is, you need to bring everyone up to speed. We're doing these boardroom updates. So you bring everyone up to speed. It's like a training session, really. And that could be C-suite. If it's a small company, it could be you and your co-founder. But then it's a question of, well, what do you do next? So then it's a question of, right, that's great. There's a lot of noise. How do we actually make, what are the actionable things we can actionable
Where's
next
the
steps?
different advantages? Like, what would your P&L look like if it was transformed, and which technologies?
What's the impact on, your business, your sector? What's that going to look like? So quickly, we call it AI Accelerate. So that's kind of going into your business, your sector. What's the impact going to be? What's the horizon scanning? Are there any big ideas your business needs? I mean, there are some things that, machine learning, there are different strands to AI where you could make a huge amount of change, but it might require some time and investment. And that sets the scene. Then the next phase, we call it AI Advantages, where you're then going into, okay, real work, custom work on your business, looking at trying to find discovery and then solutions, implementation, and then clearly it's about measurement, optimization. And what we're also doing is offering AI fractional AI officers and to put your policy framework in place. And then over time, initially 12 months, because it's quite hard to look out further than that, is then we help you optimize and work with you to make sure things are kept up to date. Now, you might not swap things out every month because things change, but there will come a point where that software needs to, update itself or evolve, or you move
and you
to
can get
something
different
else.
productivity increases, right? Because the whole point is like if you can get 30% to 50% productivity increase across your 3 key departments, which are going to drive your growth, that's going to be huge. And then you say, okay, then afterwards I want to get some productivity increases on some of my fulfillments. My cost of goods sold goes down. So the point is, it's an ever expanding, solution, really, isn't it? Like, and it's a question of simply like wait.
Well, also there's a lot of tech that hasn't caught up. So people on TV talking about call centers and chatbots. They're not using large language models yet, and I'm sure all these customer service companies and they're all busy trying to build this in very, very quickly. But that's still reasonably old technology. What we're talking about here is something which is fundamentally different. It is extremely powerful. It's now multimodal, and you think about what that means for shopping. I can hold something up to the camera. It will know this is the glass of water, and it can know the shape of the glass, and it can go off and find it for me because it's then translated into text. I did one, it's called Piers on my website, where in running businesses, right, you can ask the same questions all the time. So you can ingest all your textual content into a bot essentially, and people can then talk to the bot and ask all those questions. That's the same thing in customer service. And I think you were saying earlier is that you can start segmenting your marketing by sector and organization, but eventually, if you're a consumer, by the individual, that's where this is going.
And then you can personalize based on, like, let's say, for example, someone is an e-commerce website and they didn't complete the purchase, so it's like, stuck basket. You could have an email, which is literally, like, for example, be a voice note from you, and it could basically say, hi, Aalok, I saw that you didn't buy that mountain bike. Here's 3 reasons why I think it's a great Christmas purchase, or whatever it is, basically. And it just builds that trust, and that can be, your own voice, which is then done in a scalable way across a WhatsApp message, or it could be an email.
But also, you're setting an outcome. You're saying, look, deal with all of the reasons why this person's not going to buy this product, and then the model will keep going to it ticks off all the issues they've got with that purchase until you might not close it, but it means a human doesn't have to do that and think on the fly, and it can be completely
so you can go
automated.
to like 1,000 people, 5,000 people. So I think that's the power of it, and I think that's quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, and I think what we're trying to do is cut through it. So it's going to be we're going to do these every week. do a quick catch up, talk about who we've met, and everybody I talk to, this is what's fascinating about this, is interested in this. This is not, I was into blockchain, you weren't, were you? But I was never into NFTs and buying digital monkeys. But think about it now. When the cost of content goes to zero almost, and you don't know if any content's real, even if it's a video of me, you won't be able to tell. The value of NFTs now is a use case because every bit of content can actually have its provenance proved. So this is not like cloud. It's not like blockchain. This is a fundamental transition to a whole new world, and it's going to happen in business and economics, and it'll be a societal change. And what we want people to do, listening to this or watching this, is to get on that boat, my boat, or get on Aalok's train as soon as possible, and move to be AI
Exactly.
assisted.
So where can people find out more?
If you go to implementai.io or ping us on LinkedIn, you'll be able to get to us. And the first step is, it's not a huge commitment, is to, we call it the AI for Business boardroom update and training, is to have that session with us. Initially, we're the co-founders, we're doing it, so you're getting us. We are running out of slots, to be quite honest, it's moving very quickly. But you're getting us, and we'll do that update, and then we'll move on from there in terms of the next
Brilliant.
steps.
Well, listen, great to catch up with you, Piers, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Same time next week.
Cheers.
Okay.